I now call the Snoqualmie City Council meeting to order. All please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Jeans, can you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk, please take the roll call.
Councilmember Jeans?
Here.
Councilmember Ross?
Here, by phone.
Councilmember Holloway?
Here.
Councilmember Mayhew?
Here.
Councilmember Lissay?
Here.
Councilmember Sunwell?
Here.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Here.
Mayor Larson?
I am here. Council, may I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda for tonight?
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second is stated. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Shepherd?
I'd like to pull the warrants off the consent agenda.
Okay. We'll remove the warrants. Any other discussion on the agenda? Councilmember Mayhew?
Move to remove AB 19-146 and the public hearing on the biennial budget review from the agenda.
Second.
146, okay. Motion and a second to remove Agenda Bill 19-146. Any discussion? Councilmember Mayhew?
My understanding is that there's nothing on this that is time sensitive, and because of the lateness of getting the information out on this, I think it came out at 4 o'clock today. I think allowing this to be looked at our next session and potentially pass in January, to my knowledge, doesn't create any problem, and I think that would be a better process and allow the committee and the council members to look at this with a little more time.
Okay, we'd be happy to do that. What, the changes, as I understand from what I reviewed with you earlier, is it's just a truncated version. It's just kind of focusing it, but if you'd prefer, and I anticipated there might be a reaction to say, don't like the last minute changes again, so
Well, and
we could take it back.
we had talked about making tweaks accordingly.
It's
The
a
dollar
biennium
figure
budget
kind of
review,
put me
so-
back, though.
Yeah,
Let's
okay.
have discussion at that dollar figure.
I guess I want to hear from staff if there's any concern on time-sensitive issues that feel are pressing to get done tonight, Robert, or I know there's a few items, but perhaps we could get those done in the first meeting of December, or any time-sensitive that you would be concerned if we don't get to something, a couple of those.
Tonight, not immediately. We would like to, if you'd like to have this discussion next week in FNA, we would recommend going back if we can at the last meeting of the year.
Okay, Councilmember Sunwell?
So, can't believe I'm about to say this. We don't really have much of an agenda tonight, and I feel like we're not here to pass it tonight. And given how much time we spent on budgets past, I'm just wondering if we time bound it, like, let's say, 20-minute conversation or a 30-minute conversation and limit it, or 5-minute. Matt wants 5-minute conversation. It just might give a head start. I mean, we're not going to solve any problems today. That's my only.
Mayor,
Bob?
I think for for council, though they have not reviewed any of this, they haven't even seen it until this afternoon. I think it would be apropos to maybe carry it forward to the next committee members' meetings. We can go next week and go to not only to the FNA, we can also go to the other committees as well to talk about these types of things, if it behooved the council.
That I could live with. If there's some, like, maybe 30-minute carve-out at each, I'm just making up a number, but at each of the council meetings so that, yeah, that I could live with that.
So, Bob, if you say it, Sean's okay with it, you sure you want to leave?
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, I think that,
That solves my problem. Yeah. I
okay.
just didn't want to wait
But I
for
appreciate the
another.
idea. I think it could be kind of treated like an ordinance where this is just an introduction and we can kind of get some discussion.
We have one meeting in December, probably, right?
Because individual items might take 20 or 30 minutes each, and to at least have those discussions now, knowing we'll bring it back for asking for approvals later might be beneficial in terms of time management. But
I'm just
I'm
worried
sorry,
about.
I'm going to do roundtable. I'm going to go to
Well, I was
Councilmember
going to say, could
Lissay.
you summarize what we're taking off then again, just so we understand? Taking out AB 146 and the public hearing. Isn't the public hearing, is that for the biennial?
No, the public hearings on the, well, that's a good point.
It says it's for 19-146, so.
It's for the biennial review.
That's what I'm,
Yeah, thanks for the that's a great question, Councilman Leslie. The public hearing is specifically on the 1920 biennial budget review, and the only item pertaining to that is this agenda bill. So if the staff could help clarify with me if it means that, if it precludes the need for that public hearing, or, which
Mr.
I
Mayor,
assume is a.
the reason I ask is because when you click on the item in the agenda and you go follow public hearing, it goes to the tax levy, the
Oh,
property tax increase.
That's a good
memo.
point. So I think you probably answered the question right there. The biennial budget review would include the 1%. So I think I would be inclined to perhaps just still leave the public hearing, so any resident or someone that wants to comment on anything pertaining to a mid-review of the budget going into 2001, including the proposal for the 1.1% property tax increase, could have an opportunity to do so at this time.
I mean, we did duly publicly notice this hearing, so
Right.
I'm inclined to maybe give the council member an opportunity to modify what he's proposed.
Well, you didn't say anything about the public hearing, though, okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you had your hand up next, so Councilman Leslie, okay, Councilman Mayhew?
Yeah, so the thing I'm worried about is, so I'm fine leaving. What I'm worried is that I would want citizens to have a chance to comment, have a public hearing on 19146,
Or
when
to
they've also had a chance to look at the material.
To have
So
a chance, opportunity to influence the
Right.
council's discussion and deliberations.
my understanding was that we would have public comment tonight on the proposed property tax increase, and that
Right.
would occur in conjunction with looking at those agenda bills. So I definitely agree with having those public input on that topic, but my understanding was that was separate from this public hearing. So if this public hearing actually is on that topic, then I would modify my motion, but I guess I'm confused.
I'd like the city clerk or the, maybe city attorney to clarify if this public hearing, because frankly, I think what I said last time was that the public was going to have an opportunity to comment on whether it's the 1% taxes or the other agenda bills when those items are brought up in the regular agenda, so the public hearing isn't pertaining. So I just want clarification from those that want us to follow all the rules to know what's required by law for a public hearing on budget issues. And
Mayor, perhaps if we could just go, as long as we have a public hearing on the budget matters at our future meeting, as long as we do that, then having this tonight on, I just want to make sure that we have a chance for a public hearing on the budget, on the
all right.
budget review prior, once people have had a chance to look at that.
I'd rather err on the side of doing too many
Do
opportunities
two of
than
them.
too little or too few.
In that case,
Okay.
I move to modify my motion to, and solely move to remove AB 19146 and not do anything with regard to the public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second on the amendment. Any further discussion on the amendment to the motion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right, motion's carried. Back to the original amendment, amended amendment.
Amended agenda.
No,
No, you made a,
we just agreed to pull it off, that's all.
Yeah,
That's it, we're done.
okay.
the warrants and
No more dinosaurs.
146 are off.
Yeah, I thought he put a baby dinosaur in the little dinosaur and approved the baby dinosaur. Now we're back to his little dinosaurs. But if you're, no one's correcting me otherwise, we'll move on. All right. So with that, we'll have open the public hearing on the 2019-2020 biennium budget.
Point of order,
Oh, sorry.
I don't think we voted on the
Oh,
agenda
thank you.
itself.
That's true, actually.
All right, that's right.
That was the big dinosaur.
Now we're back to the big dinosaur. So now we're back to, now the amendment was approved, now back to the motion for the, approving the agenda with the, all amendments, including the warrants. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right, motion is carried. All right, with that, the public hearing regarding the 2019-2020 biennial budget review is now open. Is there, Chief Kerr, is anybody in the sign-up sheet back there? Anna, go ahead. Yep.
Hotel 39075 Southeast Gamma Street. I'm really confused because at 3 PM I went to the agenda. I clicked on the attachment to the biennial budget process. It is not the correct attachment. It's about the 1%. The two have nothing to do with each other. We're comparing apples to apples. So right now, I could stand up here for 2 more minutes and 34 seconds and talk to you about the 1% tax, but I have zero knowledge of what the biennial budget is. So the fact that this public hearing remained on the agenda is ludicrous. It's ludicrous. I was not provided with the information.
All right, thank you, Anna. Any of the information is on the agenda online. Anybody else like to speak at this time? All right, seeing no one further, public hearing is now closed. Moving on to appointments. At this time, I'd like to appoint Kevin Smith to the position of Information Technology Director in accordance with Snoqualmie Municipal Code 2.64.010. The appointment for the director position requires confirmation by council. May I have a motion, council?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to confirm Kevin Smith as stated. Any discussion, council? Or any questions?
Can he at least introduce himself?
Is
Yeah.
Kevin here tonight?
Well, I was seeing if there was any question discussion. Kevin, could you come up to the podium, introduce yourself, and state, I believe the council all does have your resume, so I don't know if they have any questions for you, or if, tell you a little bit about yourself.
Good evening, I'm Kevin Smith. I've been in the IT business since 1991, and recently come from UW, where I spent 5.5 years as a technology manager in their student systems.
And a Valley resident at that.
And I live in Duval,
Yeah.
and enjoying the very beautiful commute here today for my first day.
All right. Council, have any questions for Mr. Smith? Councilmember Holloway?
Well, your bachelor's degree, what was the year of that?
Ugh. I believe
Okay, good enough.
I believe it was 2006. I was employed at Microsoft at the time, and I finished it here in Bellevue.
Okay,
All right.
I'm good.
With that, Kevin, congratulations and welcome aboard. Look forward to working with you. Welcome to the team.
Do we need to vote again, Mayor?
Yes, you do.
You sound like
Oh,
you're going
thank you.
right
I
past
should
that
do the
voting
welcome
portion
after.
tonight.
Yeah. I gave a lot of blood today, so I'm not quite. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion's carried. Congratulations, Kevin. Welcome to the team. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. All right. At this time, I'd like to invite Chief Carrera to come up and recognize some firefighters for some great service.
Oh, yeah.
I was just going to do it under reports.
Let's do it now. He's a nice highlight.
Yeah. So we occasionally we get recognized by the county medical program director. He's the doctor that oversees the entire EMS program for the county. And over the last, I think it was on October 26th, we had a response over to North Bend. And it's one of those situations that happens very rare in the fire department. Or I shouldn't say very rare. Actually, in this county, it happens more than other places in the world. But actually having a successful resuscitation of a cardiac arrest victim, it's kind of a big thing to celebrate. So we received a letter from Dr. Ray recognizing Lieutenant Matt West, firefighter Greg Prothman, Sarah York, and 3 or 4 other firefighters for this incident that happened over in North Bend. We responded over there and assisted them on the call. They successfully resuscitated them, and the person was actually discharged and went home without deficits. So it's kind of a nice. It's nice to get recognized by the doctor because we don't see very many of those types of events. But it was certainly something to be recognized for. So they did a good job.
Great. Thank you, Chief.
Yep.
And thank you to those men. All right. Richard, you have a little announcement from the museum here tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. Richard Anderson from the Northwest Railway Museum. Just wanted to say we're having a wonderful year at the museum, and we have a new member of our team, Elizabeth, who you all, I think, knew, has moved on to work for Tacoma Metro Parks, and we have now hired Emily Boersma to work with us. She's taken Elizabeth's position as our program coordinator, so she'll be working on railroad days and many other great things between the city and the museum. So,
Great. All right.
Hey, so I'm Emily Boersma. Thanks for having me here tonight to introduce myself. And I'm looking forward to working with the Northwest Railway Museum in the near future, like now. I'm originally from Wenatchee, Washington, and have lived in the South for about 6 years, so I'm glad to be back in Washington State. So, thanks.
Great. Well, welcome, and look forward to working with you. The Train Museum certainly represents a lot of the vitality and activity for downtown, very important. Richard, could you introduce this fine young citizen here sitting to your right?
this is my able-bodied assistant, Maxwell.
Yeah. Welcome, Maxwell. Thanks for coming tonight. All right.
Very excited to be here.
We appreciate you keeping an eye on your dad. All right. With that, we'll move on to citizens' comments. At this time, for anybody who would like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda tonight. But first, a few ground rules. First, Snoqualmie citizens who are not present have a right to have their elected representatives perform their duties on behalf of the city in an efficient and orderly manner. Therefore, comments will be limited to 3 minutes each. Second, please wait to be recognized. Come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Third, direct your comments to the council as a whole and not to individual members. In order to protect the privacy rights of employees and protect the members of the public from legal liability, please note that this is not the appropriate venue to make complaints or accusations about an implied or named city employee or agent. Such oral comments will not be allowed, but can be submitted in writing to the city clerk. Fourth, please note that this is not a time to ask questions of the council, mayor, or staff, or to engage in debate. The council will quietly and respectfully listen to your concerns. Please respect the decorum of these proceedings, as all due respect will be afforded to you. And then lastly, please note that comments for the items that are not on the agenda are only audio recorded per council action on September 9, 2019. So with that, is there anybody else that would like to speak at public comment right now for items not on the agenda? All right, Anna?
Anna Sotelo, 39075 Southeast Gamma Street. I made some notes. I usually don't, but I have a few different points. I was really disappointed at last council meeting by council members not looking up from their computer while I'm speaking. I've always addressed the council with respect and in a professional manner, and I don't think that 3 minutes is really that unreasonable. It certainly doesn't feel like leadership that's listening when you're not making eye contact with me. My second point I really wanted to talk about was regarding the Save Our Snoqualmie contract that was discussed. And what bothered me, you know, what the mayor referred to me, that it was just one ex-business owner. It was about proceeding without a signed contract. But for the record, other things that weren't okay with it was, in order to be in the local guide that they talked about, you had to win the best of the best. And this contest took place between January 3rd and January 7th. It was only advertised on their own Facebook page, so no one else knew about it if it was going on. But the biggest problem about it was that it was a Google survey. And you could vote over and over and over and over and over again. There was no way to track the computer or the device that was used. It was really disappointing, though, that of the contract, the things that got cut from it was the part about educating the business owners, because that's actually what's missing. And if you guys are really interested in those goals that you guys have talked about, then you'd want them to be able to understand what these tools are. So I really was disappointed that you guys didn't insist on that business training part to be included in the contract. But back to the biggest problem was proceeding without a contract. And that seems to be a common procedure lately. You know, it wasn't just about $6,000, as Councilmember Sunwall kept saying. It was about the fact that we proceeded again without a contract. So, for example, January 3rd through January 7th is when they did that. There was no contract. The contract came in August. Kind of back to the snarky comments about the ex-business owner. You know, careful. You're going to make me want to start to pay B&O tax again in this city. the goals that were mentioned so many times in the debates about finding a new source of revenues, finding a new source of revenue, I really hope that you guys reflect on that in your retreat. Because I don't see, especially with things like this, that an effort's being made to figure out how. How are you going to do it? I really want to speak on my last 47 minutes regarding the earlier meeting with the state auditor report. I know that it was curiosity of who it was. I was one of those calls. I was one of those referrals. And anything you'd like to know what I'm happy to share with you guys. There's no shame in my game about it. And these are all things that I addressed with you guys and administration, and I was unable to get the answers to them. So again, you're not going to shame me for calling the state auditor or emailing. It was email. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Is there anyone else like to speak at this time? All right, seeing no one else move forward, move on to the consent agenda. All items listed below will be enacted by one motion. Action items include minutes for the November 12, 2019 regular council meeting, minutes for the October 28, 2019 roundtable and regular meeting, minutes for the October 14, 2019 regular meeting, and minutes for the October 10, 2019 special meeting, or the town hall meeting. Also, other approvals include Agenda Bill 19132, interlocal agreement between the City of Snoqualmie and Zone 3 Fire Garage Consortium. Agenda Bill 19133, Police Department Narcotics K-9 Program and Memorandum of Understanding between the City of Snoqualmie and the Snoqualmie Police Association. And Agenda Bill 19145, purchase of two 2020 Ford Interceptor SUV four-wheel drive police package vehicles for service in North Bend. Do I have a motion, Council?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as stated. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on any of these items prior to action? Seeing no one move forward, any discussion, Council? All right, hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. With that, we move on to ordinances. Agenda Bill 19139, ordinance certifying an increase in the general taxes for the City of Snoqualmie for the fiscal year commencing January 1st, 2020 on all property, both real and personal, in said city which is subject to taxation. The general taxes are for the purpose of paying sufficient revenue to carry on the departments of said city for the ensuing year. This was introduced on the 12th and is ready for action tonight. The summary statement was already written, so if you could just read the motion, Councilmember Holloway.
Move to adopt ordinance certifying an increase in the general taxes of the City of Snoqualmie for the fiscal year commencing January 1, 2020 on all property, both real and personal, in said city, which is subject to taxation. The general taxes are for the purposes of paying sufficient revenue to carry on the departments of said city for the ensuing year. May I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve ordinance number 1222 as stated by Councilmember Holloway. Yeah, so like, Drew, we'll go ahead and queue up a presentation from you and then open it for discussion.
Hi, good evening, Council. My name is Drew Boutin. I'm the budget analyst for the City of Snoqualmie. I last gave a presentation on November the 12th. In essence, the beginning portion here is just an update of that presentation. A lot of the same slides. I also have some slides on some property tax relief programs that we can offer the citizens here in Snoqualmie, as well as a potential explanation of our bank capacity and how that is different maybe from what some of our expectations are. So feel free to stop me whenever you want to, or have me move on to a different subject if I'm going astray. So
Ask for it.
Yeah, please don't say that.
So in essence, council will need to, there's two property tax actions. Council will need to pass one, an increase ordinance that increases the 2019 levied amount by 1.11% or less. The 1.11% includes the capacity bank last year. And secondly, council will need to certify regular and excess property taxes to the King County Assessor's Office, and you'll see that under Agenda Bill 19141. Administration's recommendation is to pass the increased ordinance as currently written, which includes an increase of 1.11%. And the reason for this is because it can help to address a number of council goals, help to keep pace with the rate of inflation, and helps to tackle the structural deficit between revenues and expenditures. We kind of went over this during the last presentation, but 2019 year to date, Regionally, we're looking at a 3.28% increase in the rate of inflation over 2018. And the city of Snoqualmie is not immune to that rate increase, or that inflation increase. Secondly, as I mentioned, there are some cost of living adjustments for 2020 for the Snoqualmie Police Association. We're expecting a 3.2% cost of living adjustment. For the International Association of Firefighters, it's a 3% cost of living adjustment. And for Teamsters, it's a 2.5% cost of living adjustment as well. So based on this information, administration's recommendation with council's approval is a regular levy in the amount of $8.28 million. And we also fully acknowledge that if we don't capture any additional revenue, property tax revenue from state assessed utilities, the regular levy would then equal $8.16 million, or a 1.6% increase over 2019. Just to call out a couple factors here for 2020, we've got the $89,000 or 1.11% plugged in here. I just want to point out new construction is equal to roughly $32,000, which is a substantial decrease from what we collected last year in 2019. This year, the Snoqualmie Ridge 2 completed around February or so. For the state assessed utility value, we don't quite know exactly what this value is going to be until after council certifies property taxes. The reason for that is the state doesn't finish collecting this data until December, into December, for example. So what we've done is we've provided you with a range here with a potential max. As a result, you're looking at a potential regular levy of $8.16 million to $8.28 million. We also have an excess levy. The purpose of this excess levy is to pay the annual debt and interest payment on the 2002, or its fire station bond, and this bond is scheduled to mature December 1st, 2022. In terms of the assessed valuation for the city overall, we actually received today a final letter.
If I could do a quick interruption on that, just go back to that one slide. Can you, offhand, I know that amount's been dropping as more businesses and residents contribute, but what is the current cost per thousand that we can anticipate will come off of people's tax burden in 2022 when the fire station bond is retired?
That's about 7 cents right now.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Right, and you can kind of see that in this table here, that the excess levy is roughly equal to about 7 cents. Like I mentioned, we did receive a final letter from the King County Assessor's Office indicating what our assessed valuation was going to be for this year. What they had reported earlier to us is different. It's not actually $3.51 million, which is the number that they gave us back in October. It was revised down to $3.47 million. And like I said, we received the letter today.
You mean billion, right?
Billion, yes,
Yeah.
sorry.
Make sure you emphasize the B.
Okay. Exactly. So really the range that you should see here is 3.47 billion to 3.552 billion. All right.
So if I'm doing my math right, at 7 cents per thousand, average house around $700,000, that's about just shy of $50 per household of a reduction. So if in one or 1.1%,
Mayor, point of order. Okay, that excess levy is not up for really debate. We're already committed to it.
no, I understand, Councilmember Hall.
Whether what is going to happen in 2021 when it goes over.
What it's relevant to is the overall tax burden that's always been part of this conversation.
But not in 2020, it's not.
It's there in 2020, and that's the discussion tonight.
Right. Okay, I just want to be clear that we're going to see a tax reduction for the average home of $49 when we're talking about $12 annual increases. So even over the next 3 or 4 years. All right, continue, please.
All right.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Councilmember Ross, go ahead.
So did you state that basically the assessed value hasn't changed at all from 2019 to 2020?
Basically, correct. I
So
mean, I'm rounding up in
3.47
this table,
billion
for example.
In
but-
2019 and the same in 2020.
Correct.
To the nearest
Thank
million.
you.
To the nearest million.
Years back.
That's fair.
Give or take.
So as a result, right, of this reduction in the assessed valuation that we just saw with the latest letter, your regular levy rate, is not $2.33 per thousand dollars assessed valuation. It's really $2.35 per $1,000 assessed valuation. So just keep that in mind. All right. So, oh, actually, we've got that in here. So in terms of the impact, if council approves a 1.11% increase, equal roughly to $89,000, and if the average value of a property in Snoqualmie is equal to $700,000, then the property owner would likely owe $7 or likely owe $17.60 more next year, or roughly $1.50 monthly to support the city if all else remains constant. All right. So we looked into some property tax relief programs recently, and we noted that the King County Assessor's Office offers 3 property tax relief programs. The first one is the Senior Citizens Disabled Exemption. This is available to senior citizens born before 1959, retired persons with disabilities, or veterans with 100% service-connected disability. It's limited to those who make 65% of the median household income in King County, or roughly equal to about $58,423. And in essence, what this program would do would be to decrease or eliminate your property taxes altogether. Another program that the King County Assessor's Office would offer is this deferral program for senior citizens and retired persons with disabilities. The income limit for this program is $67,411. And in essence, what it would do is to defer your property tax liability into the next year, where you could reapply for the program then. And then lastly, the third program the King County Assessor's Office offers is to individuals who have owned and occupied their property for 5 or more years. The limit is for disposable household income of $57,000 or less. And that's disposable household income as calculated by the King County Assessor's Office. And it's good for a year. And so anyone that wants to continue receiving this benefit, which is a deferral of 50% of their taxes, would have to reapply every year.
Any money that is not collected because of any of these programs is then dispersed across the entire population to collect, right?
Yes. Okay. All right. So the last section that I have for you is an explanation regarding bank capacity.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Is that true of the third one? Or does that just carry as a receivable?
Well, I
assume the third one actually does not disperse across the others, the rest of the population. It just carries as a receivable, right?
So we can look further into that. Mm-hmm. All right. So a question that we had at the last council meeting was regarding bank capacity. I think the expectation is because the city pretty much took a 0.5% increase last year. Everyone might figure, why don't we have available to us this year 1.5%, and why is staff administration asking for 1.11%? So to get into this, I want to describe to you 2 different levy amounts that we calculate. We're calculating the amount of property taxes that the city of Snoqualmie actually levies in a given year. And then secondly, we're also calculating a separate number which represents the maximum actual levy the city of Snoqualmie can collect in property tax. It's a ceiling that the city of Snoqualmie cannot exceed, and the King County Assessor's Office is keeping this as a running total for the most part. Now, the reason why I want to demonstrate these 2 for you throughout the rest of this presentation is because they're calculated differently. And that impacts us, basically how much we actually bank on an annual basis. All right? So I've got 2 tables set up here. I've got the actual levy, your left-hand table, and they also have a separate table here, the maximum allowable levy. The one on the left represents the amount of property tax that we're going to levy or have levied in the past, and the one on the right represents the statutory max. All right? So I want to call out that for 2018, the amount of property tax that we levied was equal to the maximum allowable levy that we could do. But there are some different terms that we would use for each table. For the one on the left, you see that we actually use as a base last year's actual levy, which would be the actual levy for 2017. And for the table on the right, the maximum allowable levy, we use something called a levy basis. And the reason for this is because of these refunds that you see here. And we'll see when we get into 2019 that those two numbers are actually different. Those two numbers both tables actually started from different bases, okay? Now the reason for that starts with, and we'll start with the levy basis. In essence, according to the King County Assessor's Office, in order to figure out what your levy basis is for the new year, you would take last year's maximum allowable levy and subtract for refunds. So for the 2019 levy basis, we took the maximum allowable levy, which was $7,813,872, and subtracted for those 2018 refunds of roughly $25,390 for a total levy basis of $7,788,482.
Drew, what exactly are refunds?
Refunds are corrections that the King County Assessor's Office needs to make. They're typically administrative in nature. Maybe they've got some things wrong, for example, but.
And who gets the refund? The city?
The city gets the refund, and it's treated here as kind of a one-year levy. So that's something that we have to keep in mind.
Just what happens, Mayor, is when taxpayers appeal, when there's been a mistake, the taxpayer gets a levy, and then the city's property tax adds on top of it an amount to levy to correct for those refunds that were done in the previous year. So the city receives additional property tax money from other taxpayers to cover the cost of the refunds. And that refund money is on top of the other regular property tax levy, as Drew will show in his tables. But when you calculate the basis for the next year, that additional money is not included in the basis. That's the refund that he's talking about there.
Yeah, specifically for the maximum allowable levy table. So in terms of last year's actual levy, RCW 8455-120 states that the increase ordinance must specifically state for each year the dollar increase in percentage change in the levy from the previous year. That's a critical factor because calculating the last year's actual levy, we don't actually subtract for any refunds because last year's levy included refunds. Therefore, the amount of property tax levied in 2018, $7,813,872, forms the basis for the 2019 actual levy. So as a result, I'll just use my pointer here. You can see that last year's actual levy basis or amount here was $7,813 and $7,813,872, and the levy basis started at a lower amount because we subtracted for the 2018 refunds, and that is equal to $7,788,482. Now, on top of that, council approved a 0.5 percentage increase last year, which was roughly equal to $38,943. When you start to add up all these additional other elements, add-ons as they're called, such as new construction, utility value, and refunds, which are the same, I want you to notice that the total difference below. It's roughly only $13,000, and that's primarily because we were starting from a different base for both calculations. As I mentioned, we cannot exceed this dollar amount right here, the $8,048,644. So really, last year, the amount that we could have increased, actually taken out, increased our levy by was 0.67%. In essence, if we wanted to actually achieve the maximum allowable levy possible. Okay, so what is bank capacity? Bank capacity is the difference between the maximum allowable levy that could have been made under Chapter 8455 RCW and the actual levy that was imposed, less funds levied not subject to the maximum allowable levy, such as refund levies. So in essence, in 2020, for us, in order to just meet the maximum allowable levy, the only amount possible is 1.11% that you see up here when you add everything up. Notice once again that last year's actual levy in this table over here is different from the levy basis that we have under this maximum allowable levy table. And in essence, this describes why the top amount that we could do is 1.11%. All right? So I just pointed out, recommend, and this is recommended included in the increase ordinance. So that's basically it for now. I guess I'll turn it back over to council.
All right, actually, before we open for council discussion, I want to offer an opportunity for anybody from the public to comment on this agenda item prior to possible action. All right, see no one move forward.
Let me, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Just to mention one thing, so the city of Snoqualmie isn't the only one that's dealing with the erosion of bank capacity over time. If you go to the city of Issaquah and their increased ordinance, they've actually been dealing, and they have a complete section in their ordinance right here as well regarding bank capacity and how that has actually diminished over time for them as well. So you will see this evident with other cities. It's just this is probably the first time that we've had to experience this, so thank you.
All right, thank you, Drew. Councilmember Summel.
Drew, question for you. So, thanks for putting that together. I think I have a headache, but I'll work through that. Is there ever, so this is sort of a question about bank capacity. So say take the 1.1, right? Are we always allowed at least one? Like, would there ever, with all that crazy math you did up there, is there ever, like, next year, based on refunds and stuff like that, would there ever be a thing where we could where we couldn't take as much as one?
Yes. And that has been true in the past with the city. So if you go back to, say, the increase ordinance for 2015 or 2016, what you'll see written in there is 0.95% or 0.86%, always because we always accepted refunds for the most part. So it could diminish the amount that you could actually do below 1%.
But it's not really lost money because it's being lowered because you got money through refunds,
Correct.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other circumstance where you might be limited to less than 1% is if the inflation rate, as defined in the property tax limitation, is less than 1%. Then you can get to 1% only if there's a finding of substantial need made by the by a supermajority of the council.
Gotcha. Okay.
Councilmember Holloway.
Okay. I'm not exactly sure why we need to make this harder than rocket science, and I've seen rocket science. But let me bring it back to something a little more simpler. To save embarrassment, I went out and looked at what my tax bill was from freely available through King County from 2010 to 2019. Okay? My basic real estate tax went over that period went up 77%. My city taxes went up 53%. Although we have historically done the 1% levy through the rocket science, it has equated to approximately a 5% increase per year. Now, this is strictly, you can go to the website, pull out your own tax information. I put it in a spreadsheet and followed it, okay? I do agree that the levy rate, or the millage rate, has stayed pretty constant, matter of fact, has gone down. But you have to take into account the change in assessed value of individual properties going forward from there, okay? I hear the argument of we need to do the cost of living, which has been running at 3.28, but again, based on the numbers just for my property, and then feel free to go to Google and do King County tax value, and it'll show you. We're doing at a 5% per year, okay? So I understand this, and this is the millage rate, and it's actually based on that level. It's been fairly constant, okay? I will say I'm a little concerned that, no, that's about right, although we could, the state tax over, depending on what time period you do, we and the state tax flip sides of who's number two on this bill. But I concur, the major portion, I'm happy that a major portion of my real estate taxes goes to education. I can think of no other higher calling, okay? What we are talking here tonight is what portion of it comes from the city of Snoqualmie, and what is our responsibility to the citizens as far as how much tax we are pulling and how we are managing that tax moving forward. Again, based on the tax from 2010 to 2019, I understand we do the 1%, but through the machinations of the math, it figures out to be about a 5% over year to year, okay? So from there, and from there, and the fact that, guys, we haven't made any difficult decisions of late. Financially, we're sitting pretty good. Financially, we've seen funds, we're taking $4 million out of our budget, setting it aside potentially for a community center, okay? With that, I would like consideration of, again, banking the levy rate this year. I will yield the floor to Mr. Mayhew, or Councilman Mayhew at that stage.
Councilmember Mayhew.
Yeah, so the thing that's really important for us to understand is how property taxes work. So when Councilmember Holloway's property tax goes up 5% a year, that doesn't go to the city. Everything above 1% goes to other citizens of the city to lower their tax bills. And the reason that this is occurring is because Councilmember Holloway's property value is going up at a faster rate. The assessed value is going up at a faster rate than the average of all Snoqualmie homes. So what happens is, remember, the way that this gets calculated is we pick the dollar amount. In this case, what was proposed, whether we'll accept it or not, it's a different question, but what was proposed was $89,000. That's all we'll get, no matter if Councilmember Holloway's property goes up in value 20%, 50%, goes down 50%, doesn't change, that we will get $89,000 more than last year. So the rest of that's just this very complex property tax system that the state of Washington uses.
None of us like it.
So you know, whether that's a great system or a poor system, we don't actually get to change that. We're just dealt that hand. But the important thing is that no one should ever believe that if your tax goes up more than the increase we passed, you must know none of that goes to the city. It goes to other taxpayers of Snoqualmie to lower their taxes by an offsetting amount for those whose property value didn't go up as much as yours did. So the reason I want to make sure that's really clear is, while any of us may have individual frustrations about our own personal property tax, that's actually an independent, really has almost nothing to do with what we're dealing with tonight. It has to do with the increase in assessed value of our house versus everybody else in a wacky system. So I think we just have to decide, is 89,000 or 1.1%, is that a smart thing to do in order to cover things like our average 3% or so increase in salary costs, salary and related costs, which is 70% of the whole operating budget. So I think that's really the key. The other thing I just want to mention is, remember that we have to keep clear in our mind the difference between capital money and operating money. So we cannot, almost all of the capital money that we have cannot be used, by state law, cannot be used for operations. So if we wanted to take $4 million of accumulated REIT and use it for operations, we can't do that. That's illegal. It's not an option that we have. So I think when we talk about capital money, we need to really think, okay, capital money really impacts taxes that are restricted for capital, such as the gas tax, which we're not talking about tonight. And we can talk about other uses, capital uses, permissible uses for capital money, but we're not talking about that tonight either. So I think that's a valid discussion that we can have It's just, I believe, not on the table tonight. I think it's just the operating, and whether we think we ought to take that 89,000, which is 1.1%, to try and keep up with costs that are frankly going up much faster than that, and understand that for our taxpayer base as a whole, they will only pay 89,000 more.
And we wouldn't actually be able to keep up, it's partly keeping up.
Mayor?
Yeah.
If I could just ask for Councilor Mayor, maybe to want to clarify a couple comments you made. If my taxes go up more than the 1%, I'm not giving that extra tax to someone else. It's helping to offset the difference. I think what you're suggesting there may be a bit confusing for some folks who are listening, that they're thinking that they somehow got money from Councilor Mayhew because his taxes went up more than theirs did. I just want to make sure that we understand that.
Yeah, so I kind of use some down-home language, but sort of the precise way to say it is, there are others in the city whose taxes, actually we know for a fact, there are others in the city whose taxes went down last year versus the year before. We had one citizen come and talk to us about it 2 weeks ago here. Their taxes actually went down because their assessed value, somehow the machinations meant that their tax has to do with the millage rate, and I won't go through the calculation of it, but their tax went down. For others, their tax may have gone up, but not by 1%, maybe by 0.5%. But it all works out, the county assessor spreads that across all the assessed values such that the net amount that comes to the city is that number, 89,000. Well, last year, whatever last year's number was, I think it was in the range of 35,000.
Jody, can you go back one slide?
She doesn't have the clicker. Jason, you go back
Drew,
one
can
slide.
you go back a slide?
To 19.
That one, right there.
Yeah,
Oh,
so-
oh, go right there.
Yeah.
Right there.
There. So last year, the net that came to the city was 38,943. If your taxes went up by more than 0.5%, that was offset by others whose taxes either went down or went up by less than 0.5%. But in total, it netted exactly that number.
Can you go, Bob, go to the next slide? So help me out, because I'm a little confused here. In 2018, we had a 5% increase, which should have been 38,000. But what's your? 0.5, sorry. 0.5% increase, 38,000, 39,000. And in your next slide, that really equated to 52,000 and actually a 6.7% increase.
This is to
Illustrate.
share with you, for example, that if we wanted to achieve the maximum allowable levy amount, that's legally, statutorily the max, for example, of $8,048,644, the most you could have increased or included in your increased ordinance was 0.67% or $52,000.
Last year.
To
Yes.
put it differently, had we passed an ordinance at 1%, it actually wouldn't have happened. The maximum we could have actually done last year was 0.67%.
So all the debate last year was about 0.17%.
We just didn't know it at the time.
Right.
Is that right?
Right. We didn't know at the time, yeah.
I just want to add one thing really fast to the discussion, just a discussion piece. You can see the 2019 new construction value is 176,000. That was the last year that we were adding from the Ridge development. That was the final phase of the Ridge, the townhomes up on top. So if we look at 2020, where's the 20 slide?
Give it to the guy who knows how to do it.
I have a question.
We got the, let me finish, no, sorry. And we got the numbers today. The new construction value, we're only adding about 32,000. And there was hardly any new construction in the city last year, pretty much to Hampton Inn, and that was it. The Spring Plaza was still under construction. We should get some increased values in 21, but not till 21. So what you're seeing is a new trend. And again, the 176,000 we added last year is into the base. That's ongoing revenues. That's in our general fund year to year. Now we're seeing the slowdown. We're seeing the effects of the build out here. We're finally seeing the effects of the build out. We knew it was coming. This is the first real assessment we can see where we're down to 32,000 in new
I
construction.
think it would be accurate to say over the last decade or more, we've been able to mask some of the impacts of the erosive effect of inflationary stuff by a lot of one-time revenues from growth that's now disappearing. So we're going to feel that pinch even more severely in the future now. Councilmember Shepherd?
So I've noticed that we have quite a few lots that are they're ready to build on, but they're empty. They haven't been built on. So
Where are you speaking of? Where?
that would be off of Jacobia or back up in the hills on the right. Anyway, I think that there's more. I don't know if they're going to be built out or what, but I think there's more building to come.
There's a hill at the base of, an area at the base of Eagle Point that the Mormon Church owns, and that's already been allocated or held for a future Mormon church.
But
otherwise, there's about 12 single-family lots left in the Panorama project, and that's it.
Oh, I think we can stipulate there are some lots, but that is not a controllable factor by the council.
Yeah.
This is an estimate from staff, what they're saying of what they're, or think,
Right.
but at the end of the year, it'll be whatever it is.
We're coming to full build-out, and all this growth and all that revenue is stopping.
As they come onto the books, you're going to see Spring Plaza finishing up, lots 4, 5, and 7 in the business park.
That's the last lots in the business
That's
park.
it, and then S21, which is near the hospital, and they've been trying to sell that for years with no bites. So technically, it's 6 acres that could be developed, but
Right, but
no
then in
interest.
the future, there's potential for Snoqualmie Hills West, the mill site. I mean, agreed, we're slowing down, but this is not something there's not a decision for us tonight.
Right. Councilmember Summel?
Yeah, the point is it's coming to a screeching halt compared to what it was. And so that's going to be close to zero for the foreseeable future compared to what it's been. So let's not debate whether we have 6 lots or 14 lots or something that might be built out in 10 years. The point of the matter is like we've never seen before since I've lived here for 15 years, that number is going to be close to zero for a while. Just is. So we have to plan accordingly.
Well, and I think past councils did the proper thing of taking one-time
Councilmember Holloway, I want to give an opportunity to do some more roundtable, but for those that haven't heard from Councilmember Lassay or Jeans yet, and we can come back to you.
I'll defer to Councilmember Holloway to finish his thought.
You sure about that?
Councilmember Jeans, would you like to say? Hold on, Councilmember Jeans?
Well, I think it's even gloomier than some of the people have indicated here this evening. With card tabs, that revenue not coming to the city if that law passes, if the vote is still carried, that would be a disappointment to the city that we will lose some revenue from that. We will lose revenue with the loss of the Salish expansion. And we perhaps now, more than ever, at least at our retreat, will have to sharpen our pencils. We'll have to find creative ways to do things, maybe things that we have agreed to in the past. We've got to take another look at. We've got to take a look at really all aspects of how much we spend and how much we can get in the way of revenue. But I'm sort of sick and tired of having that burden on my back, our backs as citizens, as property owners. We're to the point of having to play the cards that we've been dealt. Haven't been dealt a pretty good set of cards because we are a bedroom community, and it seems like, or maybe for too long, it has seemed like we have no alternative. And I think we need to take spend some concerted time at the retreat to take a look at how we spend our money and what we spend our money on, and find ways to contract that to live in the new reality. Maybe the new reality means the expansion of the urban growth area into the western addition. Maybe it needs other kinds of things that allow growth, revenue to spur revenues to the city. Whether you believe we have a a tourism plan or not, we ought to give some real consideration to a tourism plan and get revenues from tourists for property, for sales tax. That would be a glorious way to expand the revenues to the city. So I'm thinking I'm tired of paying this myself, and I think we need to take a closer look at the retreat as to how we do business and what we spend our money on.
Councilmember Say, I'll give you an opportunity again.
I think my fellow council members and even you, Mr. Mayor, understand that I am not a taxing person. I am a taxing person. I'm not a person that believes in taxes, in taxing your way out of a problem. I believe we've had a problem for many years. We've just been flush with revenue that we didn't want to accept it. And it's nice to hear that fellow council members have realized that time has come, that it's now almost too late, that we continue to want to spend dollars and not save dollars. And we want to spend it on luxuries, and we want to spend it on activities or operations that we should be tightening our belt on. We should have been tightening our belt on 2 years ago. I'm looking forward to the discussion on the budget for next biennium and how we go about doing that. I'm also looking forward to the discussion of where we can create those savings so that the tax burden isn't borne by the citizens at such a high amount. Because although I understand the economics of the 1.1% versus what the charts will tell you is closer to 5% for some residents, or even higher for some residents, that tax burden is not equally applied. So as I did last year, and as I advocated for last year, I advocate for council to find $89,000 somewhere else and not burden the citizens of Snoqualmie with additional taxes.
Councilmember Summerall.
I'm a little frustrated because a lot of the conversation is still focusing on comparing apples and oranges. We can talk about car tabs. Car tabs have absolutely nothing to do with this conversation because we cannot use car tabs for operations. Can't.
You can use it for road, so you can use it for streets.
That's
But at
not
this
an
point, we do not.
operations.
Well, it
Capital
isn't.
expense.
There is the potential without that revenue.
Well, no, you can do street
You
operations.
have to take from general fund.
But right now, we're not. We're not using it at this point for
Right.
that.
And, you know, some of the other revenues, part of being a bedroom community, when you sign up to live in a bedroom community, at least in this state, with the way the tax structure is you sign up for paying more property taxes because you forego sales taxes because you don't want all of that big box crap in your neighborhood. That's what you sign up for. Now, you may not have thought of that when you walk in the beautiful house with the great view and everything's hunky-dory, but that is what you sign up for when you live in a bedroom community, that you are going to bear a higher percentage on your backs and property taxes. And we can be frustrated all we want about the regressive tax systems in the state, but it's what we have, okay? So $89,000 is what is at stake here. That is roughly a head count, okay? So my question is who are we going to cut? 72% of our operating expenses are staff. Are we going to cut a fireman, a policeman? Which staff behind me is going to get cut? Because that's what we're talking about. It's $89,000. And while we pontificate and go to offsites and talk about all these plans of drawing more revenue, the time is ticking, okay? We're continuing to increase our costs at 3 to 5%, and this is just one way to help stop that bleeding. And if we punt on this, we never catch up. We just don't catch up. And I mean, we can only collect $89,000, and that's going to be divided amongst however many households we have in the city. and for some it's going to be more, and some it's going to be less. I get it. I'm at the top of this chart. But I don't know any other way unless we're going to cut staff. So unless we have a volunteer, I don't know what that looks like. And I do not think that we're overstaffed in the city.
I just wanted to add to Councilmember Sunwell's comments that it's not just $89,000. It's $89,000 every year into perpetuity with its compounded, loss to ongoing operations. Councilmember Holloway.
I have a comment when I get a chance.
Oh, thank you.
I will defer. She hasn't talked.
Councilmember Ross. Sorry, I should have been reminded earlier when we were doing round robin. Councilmember Ross, go ahead.
I think one of the things at Citizens Academy, when you had the graduates a couple of weeks ago, one thing that they stated, and I've seen each year, is that residents that participate in the Citizens Academy, that they're impressed with the city departments and how well they're run with limited resources. And I think as a city, as a council, we've been mindful of the costs and our resources, even as our community is growing. And this 1% or the 1.1%, you've already pointed out, it doesn't even cover the cost of living adjustments that we have agreed to in different contracts with our police, with our fire, with our Teamsters. And it doesn't cover things we've included in our budget, like the fire department rescue tools, the Jaws of Life, or the affordable housing study that we want to do. So I'm going to vote yes for this because we need the $89,000 just to cover some basic costs in our general fund.
Councilmember Holloway.
That's it.
So one, I guess in part, I disagree with the assertion that if we do not take this $89,000, we're getting rid of a head. I think there's $89,000. We've been doing reserves. We have reserves. We've been building those up to the extent that there was some reserve money that we pulled off to do other things, okay? So I don't want it to shade this as this is a decision that Sue, Mary, whatever, is not going to have a job tomorrow if we make a decision. No, that's inappropriate coloring on this decision tonight. It is our job to manage the budget, okay? The question is, you want to manage it with $89,000 more in this category, $89,000 less next year based on the decision tonight, okay? I have been kind of faulted that I took my own residents for the comparison tonight, but guys, I've had conversations with business owners. They're asking me, what are you doing to me? And I go through the conversation of, well, it's not, the city's a minority player in the overall bill. Look at the overall large dollar figure, the dollar breakout, and a lot of those were appropriately voted in. We ourselves appropriately voted in a safety one, public safety one. The school voted in for the new high school. Appropriate things to do. Question is just balancing our portion of that overall dollar bill cutout. What is appropriate decision on our behalf for the citizens of Snoqualmie? And also I would like, probably next year, can we start this conversation earlier? Because I would love to have this in context with all the other revenues the city has and what we're doing, as opposed to talking this in isolation, which has been our habit every year. We probably ought to step it up a little earlier so we can talk revenues, and this is a portion of it. But just food for thought. With that, I would like to motion the ordinance to reduce the levy to 0%. May I have a second?
Motion and a second to reduce the ordinance to 0%. Is there any discussion? I'll just add real quick, two points. There was a comment made about the council suggesting it lacked discipline and has been sort of sloppy and loose with how money has been spent and has not tackled the problem. I could not object to that or reject that notion more strongly. I frankly think that disparages a over decade-long legacy of council members Jeans and Holloway. The council's up in the 15 years that the Snoqualmie Ridge has been under construction, has been extraordinarily disciplined about watching this very problem, this fiscal cliff as they characterized it, and planning for it for over those years so it didn't become this painful drop off the cliff when we got there. In response to others in that same conjunction, they've always known, as this council does, that there's 3 buckets you can deal with in terms of the erosive effect of inflation. You can raise fees and taxes, you can do economic development to bring in new revenue, or you can cut costs. We've just seen a major economic development piece that we tried to diversify our revenues just disappear, as Councilmember Jean says. That bucket's just massively damaged, at least in the near future. The second one is basically saying we don't want to adjust taxes and fees, is the sentiment being expressed here. So there's only one bucket left. And let's not fool ourselves to say that it's disparaging to say that, as Councilmember Sunwall said, that it will result in staff cuts. It will not be next year. It may not be in 2021, but it will come. That can will kick down the road, and that erosive effect will have to push out somewhere, and that's the only where it can push out if you're not pulling a trigger on the other two.
So, partially disagree with you, Mayor, in that if Snoqualmie, if the Salish expansion were to go on, there would have been expenditures as well as revenue. And yes, retail and services are a net plus in that equation, but residents are a net negative. I don't know, we have never done the analysis of what that mix would have been for them, whether it was a overall negative or plus.
Of course we did that analysis. It
Well,
was a profound plus to the tune of $500,000. So otherwise, why would we have been, you were on the council for the past 10 years. Why would we have pursued economic development if not to diversify and bring in additional revenues to take the burden?
I agree there were additional
to take the
revenues,
burden
yeah.
off of property taxes, as Councilman Richards.
And I fall back. There were estimates on what fire, police, services would have been for that. Okay, but I do not remember how that all balanced out.
And most employees and folks in all sectors, private and government, get a cost of living increase in their salaries, and we're saying the city's got to pass up on that. We're just going to keep falling behind. Councilmember Shepherd.
Can we get the analysis on that as far as what they anticipated?
The Salish, when you went through that master plan approval process last year, you had extraordinary time to do that. It was all presented. We can certainly bring it back, but
It has no relevance to this
it does not
conversation.
have any
because it's not
relevance at
happening.
all, no.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just anticipated income.
Councilmember Sunwall and Councilmember Mayhew.
What is our car tab fee here, pre-Iman?
It was $20.
$20 per vehicle.
No, I mean the total tab fee that I would pay.
Pre-Iman? Oh.
Yeah, $90? Isn't that what it was here?
I paid $85 for my
$5.
2016 car.
And so now you're going
That didn't go to the
But
city.
it did not go directly to the city. That was
No, I
my
understand.
total
This is
car
not
tab.
helpful.
Hold on.
This is not helpful.
Well,
Can we
I'm
not
not
have
sure where
people
it's-
just jumping in?
Oh, sorry.
So my point is we'll all be paying about $60 less in taxes thanks to Mr. Iman, which is a third of what we're asking for on the high end.
Right. And the point I was trying to ineloquently make earlier is the average house will see about a $49 or close to $50 decrease in taxes when the fire station comes off the books in about 3 years. This price is about worth 3 years. 3 years of this increase, cumulative increase, it would take 3 years to reach about $50. So, and in addition to that, the Salish Lodge, what came to our attention is the House Bill 1287 from the state that allows tribes to apply for property tax exemptions only applies for properties that were purchased prior to March of 2015. So the Snoqualmies cannot apply for that under the current law.
The current law.
So that, we thought our impact was about $20 per household. You do all the other taxing jurisdictions, that's probably at least $40 per household. That shift will no longer be happening. So all property taxpayers in Snoqualmie will receive some relief in that regard too, and including to the car tab relief. So there are a number of areas some relief. Councilor Mayhew.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of things that we've all brought up that I think are worth discussing a lot more. And I think I'm very hopeful that we'll have a more robust discussion this coming year about the upcoming biennial budget. I think I am very proud of where we're at as compared to where we were 2 years ago in terms of what we've taken on together, the administration, we have a 6-year CIP now that covers all 3 of the major areas that a CIP should cover. We haven't had that before. We've had all 3 areas mentioned, but not really something that looks out and funds everything we can see for 6 years. So we have that in place now. I think as we look at the next biennial budget, I believe that there may be some room for cutting costs. There may be some room. But I would say common sense tells me that if 70+% of our expenses in our operating fund are personnel costs, then if we're not going to keep up, if the revenue isn't going to keep up with our costs, you may cut a few corners here and there for a little while, but you're just going to have to start cutting people. Now, I know we're looking at 1 year right now, but I'd say my take on this is we got 70% going up at 3%. This is our largest revenue stream for the operating budget. I think taking the 1% is a responsible thing to do, and I think we should look at this more comprehensively and get to where we're a lot more comfortable and people can understand some of the details of, what's going on with the gas tax and why is it that Snoqualmie doesn't use gas tax for operating? Because there's a very good reason why, which is we desperately need it to deal with the roads. But that's a whole discussion we need to go through, and everyone needs to we're getting more and more clear on that over the last 2 years. Let's keep doing that. But I think for tonight, my sense is we all kind of have a sense of where we're gonna vote. I'd encourage us, let's move on to the vote, and I think it's just a question of whether you think we can somehow should or can find somewhere to cut this money, or whether when we're not in a recession, maybe we ought to try and keep up with those 3% increases for the staff. Seems to me we all have a view on this. Maybe I'm wrong and we're still convincing each other, but if not, maybe we move to a vote.
Well, Councilor Summel.
Move to call the question on this amendment.
Second?
Motion and a second to call the question.
I was going to ask if you were doing, you guys.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion is carried. This is a vote on the amendment to reduce it to 0. So if you vote in the affirmative, you're reducing it to 0. In the negative, then we're back to the original motion at 1.1%. So all those in favor of reducing it to 0, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Nay.
I believe I counted the ayes have it. Bob Jeans, Councilmember Holloway, Councilmember Lassane, Councilmember Shepherd were in favor of reducing it to 0. The motion passes.
Okay, now back to the main motion.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Wait a minute, I'm confused what we're doing.
We're back to a main motion that was amended to 0.
We just voted on that.
No, you made,
Still have to vote on the final.
you voted on the amendment to make it 0. Now you're voting back on the base agenda bill, now at 0.
All right.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
No.
Councilmember
No.
Rowell? Okay. All right,
That means we're done, right?
No, we still have to pass
We
the
still have
main.
to pass
Then we got to do the next one,
Not if we're doing 0.
but they're,
Oh,
Can you explain what just happened?
the rest of it, yeah.
you don't want that explanation from me.
what did you say?
We just voted not to increase the property taxes.
Jody, explain the vote, please.
You voted no on the first, no to reduce it to 0, and then you voted, what was your vote on the second?
The same.
You were, no, yeah, so you voted no on the second, which was in line with your first vote. In both cases, you voted against reducing it to 0.
0%.
So there's
Right.
no increase.
So there's going to be no increase.
Explain the vote that it was 4-3. I don't think she caught that.
I think she did. Councilman Ross, you know that the vote was 4-3 in favor of reducing it to 0, correct?
Okay.
Okay, so there will
No,
be.
I didn't know that.
There will be no,
I just want to make sure you count my vote.
yeah. So for the first time in about 20 years, there will be no increase. All right, moving on to Agenda Bill 19141, ordinance levying the general taxes and levying excess property taxes for the city of Snoqualmie for the fiscal year commencing January 1st, 2020, on all property, both real and personal, in said city which is subject to taxation. The general taxes are for the purpose of paying sufficient revenue to carry on the departments of said city for the ensuing year, and the excess property tax levy is for the purpose of paying debt service on the city's unlimited tax general obligation bonds, 2016. All is required by law and providing for collection thereof.
Ready? Move to approve ordinance levying the general tax and levying excess property tax for the city of Snoqualmie for the fiscal year commencing January 1, 2020, on all property, both real and personal, in said city which is subject to taxation. The general taxes are for the purposes of paying sufficient revenue to carry on the department of said city for the ensuing year, and the excess property tax levy is for the purpose of paying debt service on city unlimited tax obligation bonds 2016. All is required by law and providing for collection thereof. May I have a second?
Second.
Point of order.
All right, Agenda Bill,
Just curious, I'm trying to understand, does this, as the existing,
Has the wrong numbers.
what we were just reading, does it need to be changed now because of the 0%?
Need to be matched up.
Yes, that's why I wanted to,
but we'll have to read it onto the record, and then we can do that. And the amendment would have to be made after it's put on the floor.
Mayor, could I ask, the motion's on the floor, it's been seconded. It may take, I think, can staff do this on the fly, or would you rather take a little bit of a break to get this calculated?
I have a number for the regular levy.
All right.
Yes.
So a motion and a second to approve Agenda Bill 19141 regarding ordinance 1223 as stated by Councilmember Holloway. Is there any member of the public like to comment on this item prior to action? All right, seeing no, moving forward. Any discussion? Councilmember Sunwell.
Move to amend the numbers to be right. According to Drew.
$8,190,082.
Say that one more time slower.
$8,190,082.
So if I could just ask for clarification, so that staff, you've calculated that prior to this evening's meeting, so we know that it's an accurate amount, correct?
I took
Okay.
the $8,279,560 that we had in this ordinance and subtracted out $89,478, which was equal to the 1.11%.
And is that the correct way to do this? We've never done this before. I want to make sure we get it right, because if council votes on it tonight, it's going to be indelible. I just want to make sure that that's accurate. We're comfortable with that?
0.23, Jim.
I
I'm
don't doubt it.
comfortable with it, but if we want a 5-minute recess, then I'm sure the more eyes that look at it, the better.
I would prefer that if we could, Mayor.
I'm sorry?
We could just take a 5-minute recess to make sure that the calculation is accurate.
All right, let's take a 5-minute recess, and we'll pick up the discussion of this agenda bill, which is on the floor, when we resume at 8:30.
Division.
All right. Where'd we leave off? I think, Drew, it's with you to clarify a number, and
Yeah, so to start off with, I just want to let everyone know or help council understand that the 0.0% the council had just approved, that was incorporated into the increase ordinance. When you do that, you're banking any amount that isn't collected necessarily from the percentage increase, okay? So just to get that on record.
So, Drew, were you right or not?
Oh, no.
You're right?
What do you mean?
It was 81,982.
You wrote it down.
You're right.
$8,190,082.
It's okay for you to say you were right.
I'm right, thank you.
Good job, Drew.
I had a lot of support behind me, so thank you to everyone that came up to assist.
To prove he was right. All right. Move to call the question? I mean, is there something to discuss?
Oh, we don't have the numbers. What do you?
He just
He just gave it to us.
Oh, you just, that's one
the
number.
second
What
time.
about the second line, the percent increase and?
So there is no percentage increase within this ordinance.
This was just a number.
This is the certification of the regular property taxes and excess property
Oh,
taxes.
so it's the bottom square on the far right that you were talking about as being 8.192 million? Is that what you're saying?
8.192.
We were talking about the ordinance. We just fixed the number to be right.
Correct. So in essence, correct. Yes, in this table, you would see 8.19 million here as opposed to the 8.28 million that you would see there, that you see here.
And summary statement will need to change to match.
Correct.
That's,
Now is when you make your motion.
all right, is there any further discussion? I think motion's been made, numbers clarified. Are we ready to vote? All right, seeing no objection. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? All right, motion is carried. Moving on to Agenda Bill 19146, ordinance amending ordinances number 1210, 1213.
Point of order, Mayor, we pulled that from the agenda.
Oh, yes, thank you. Appreciate that.
But,
All right. All right, then moving on to reports. Parks and Public Works Committee report.
it's been that a lot lately.
this is you.
Oh, no report.
Community Development Committee report.
Fellow members, we had a plan tonight to discuss what the options were that were available to us under HB 1406 to put a tax increase in front of voters for this purpose of funding affordable housing. There's some incentive from the state to do that. Given the vote we just took, it seems like it's probably a waste of our time to talk about any tax increase. Doesn't seem like that's something we're going to pass. So I move to amend the agenda to remove the discussion item on 1406.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second to remove the item on affordable housing. Any discussion? Councilor Lissay.
I wouldn't say it's necessarily a solid something council is not going to pass. I think it needs to have proper discussion and proper consideration, as it is affordable housing for the communities, the citizens in the community it's a valuable thing. So given that we have some timelines coming up, where do we fit this in and have this discussion so we can potentially enable the actions that are necessary on House Bill 1406? That's an open question.
Councilor Summel and Councilor Shepherd.
So my understanding, there's two parts to this. One is we take 5 seconds to vote for the free money that comes from the state.
Yeah.
And then we take 5 hours to debate whether or not we want to put on a ballot, because it would require a ballot.
Which would have to go in
Vote,
February. isn't it?
which it's too late for February, right?
Have to go in April.
So we'd have to go in April. It's basically too late for February. And so April's the next ballot. And so talking about it tonight is not critical. The only question I have is the part that's the freebie. Is there a time constraint on that?
January 27th, 2020.
So,
Councilmember
You'd have
Shepherd.
time at either of your meetings in January.
Councilmember Shepherd.
So I understand that for HB 1406, if there's more constraints as far as us being able to optimize how much money can be made available for affordable housing, whereas if the county does it, they don't have those same limitations. So I'd like to understand from our staff, what would be the consequence of the county taking advantage of this opportunity versus the city?
Sorry, did you have a point of order?
Well, just that was never part of this presentation. The staff's not prepared to make a presentation on that topic tonight.
No, not tonight.
I think, if I understand the council member's asking, not necessarily for that information tonight. I think she just wants to hear that information at a future meeting. I'm guessing. I don't know.
Right.
Okay. Any other discussion on Councilmember Mayhew's motion? Councilmember
I
Mayhew?
would just point out that, for nothing else, even putting this on the, even if we were to go with something, just putting it on the ballot alone would cost the city $50,000 to $90,000. There's no budget to even put it on the ballot. So I mean, if we want to talk about it, it's fine, but it just seems like, I don't know, but it just seemed unnecessary given the vote we just took. But it's a great discussion, and so if we want to have it, we can.
Can we vote on the motion?
Actually, I wanted to make one more clarification or ask, just so it's not misinterpreted, because I don't think he meant it that way. Councilmember Lucia, it kind of sounded the way you worded that you were responding to Councilmember Mayhew's comments, and you said, well, no, it's not that the council wouldn't consider this. This is something important. I don't think you were implying that police and fire and parks and other operational services from the city was not important.
That was never intended.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that.
We didn't need to clarify. It was never intended.
Okay. All right, Councilmember Sunwell.
Are we ready to vote on this, on taking it off the agenda?
All right, if there's no further discussion, no objection, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
No.
I'm sorry. That was 2 votes no? All right. All right, the motion passes. All right, any other report for Community Development Committee? Councilmember Mayhew? Councilmember Mayhew, any other?
Oh,
report?
sorry, no further report.
All right, Finance Administration Committee, taking up the warrants.
Warrants. Move to approve warrants as presented in the agenda. May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second to approve the warrants. Is there anybody from the public that would like to comment on any of these warrants prior to action? Seeing no one, move forward. Any discussion, Council? Councilmember Shepherd?
So I did not bring any issues to the Finance Administration Committee. I did find some questions, but in general, I just have more questions from previous questions that have been presented to the Finance Administration Committee that have not been answered. So not all of them. Some of them have been answered, but some of them have not.
Councilor Shepherd, which questions have not been answered?
Are they relevant to this warrant package or prior ones?
Not relevant to this packet.
Okay, so no questions that are relevant. Okay. Councilmember Mayhew?
I just want to make the point that this agenda, these warrants that we're about to vote on include the checks to pay the salaries of the city employees. So if we don't pass this, the policemen don't get paid. The firemen don't get paid. All the city employees don't get paid. In fact, it's worse. They've already been paid. We're approving the warrants that paid them. We would be telling the administration they need to reach back into the bank accounts of these staff and try to take the money back. So I just don't understand. I might understand a particular warrant being pulled off because there was some question about that warrant. I simply don't understand the notion that we're not going to pay our staff.
All right, if there's no further discussion or objection, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No, nope.
All right, motion is carried.
Further report.
All right, thank you. Public Safety Committee report. I think
No report.
All right, thank you. Any other, I don't think we have any other items for Committee of the Whole. Any announcements before concluding tonight? Or there's not staff written reports, so at this time I'll just see if there's any other questions from the staff. Councilor Song?
It was Bob's birthday on Sunday. Saturday, sorry.
Yes.
I'll let you guess which Bob.
Turn
We'll call
40
him,
again.
we'll call him Gig Bob. Call him Gig Bob.
It wasn't 40, but it is a decade number, so it's a big number. But yeah, congratulations on your birthday, Bob. All right. Any questions from the staff? Any other reports from the staff at this time, or questions for the staff council? All right. Are there any announcements before we conclude? Joan, any upcoming events or other stuff the council should be aware of, or key meetings this week?
Well, Snoqualmie Winter Lights is coming up December 7th is the tree lighting from, the tree lighting will be at 6:30, but the event's from 5 to 8. So looking forward to that.
Oh, would you?
Yeah. Did you want to say that real quick?
We do need to hear from all of the council members, some we haven't heard from, if they're attending, so that I could properly notice it.
I think we're one short of a quorum, so if one more jumps in or says they're coming, then she'll have to notice it.
Winter lights. Oh.
That's December
Somebody
7th?
know, I'm
I
coming.
think you already said you were coming.
Saturday, December 7th.
It's always good, hot chocolate. I'll be there.
All right. All right, thank you. Bob, did you want to?
Since you can't afford any because of the cost increasing.
Oh, would you stop?
I'll send out a reminder.
It's at 3 o'clock. I'll be there if I can.
I know our staff,
Take an emotional deep breath.
I know our staff does exceptionally well with getting the downtown and the parts of the ridge lit up with lights. I think this year was an exceptional year, though, if anybody's noticed it, but all that new fencing we put in along the SR 202, the walkway, separating that from the railroad tracks, that's all lit up. And then also the fence, I haven't seen it turn on yet, but the fence in front of all of the historic relics of the train museum, that is also going to be lit up. So it looks really nice out there.
There's a beautiful new piece of plywood that's about 10 feet by 20 feet that's new to it's pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I know. I think I know the insurance company that covers that guy that did that, too. All right. If there's no other announcements, well, I did want to say before, as council and many members know, the city administrator has announced that he's taking a job with Gig Harbor. I just wanted to quickly say how much appreciated all that Bob has done for the city for the past 15 years. It's been extraordinary service. We'll have more opportunities to do that. What I just wanted to say before we conclude tonight, especially for members of the public, is that we are going to provide an opportunity at the beginning of the next council meeting. Council, we're assuming you're going to want to kind of do the same thing with the, kind of open house for folks that want to come. We thought that's an opportunity to do some recognition of Bob at that time and have a cake or just invite folks to come. So about 6:15, we'll provide that opportunity if Bob's willing to come.
When is his last day?
January 3rd.
I'll be here through January 3rd. Yeah.
So we'll work him right to the 3rd.
Boy, he has to be here. Doesn't get to choose.
That's true, yeah. All right, so with that, no other announcements. There be no other business come before the council, and entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn tonight's meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right, motion's carried.
Thank you, Councilor Ross, for joining us.